everyone. Happy Friday. Apologies for being a couple minutes late. We've made it through another week. It is that time again. And so, as we always do at 3 p.m. on Fridays on this channel, we are going to have happy hour where we watch something to do with wokeism in some way and make fun of it and enjoy each other's company while we're doing it. Because the goal of happy hour is that we need to understand exactly what these people are saying. You know, a lot of people talk about critical race theory, the woke ideology, the progressive left, and they make these broad pronunciations about what they're saying and what they mean. Well, oftentimes when you look at what they're actually doing in the real world, the trainings they're doing in organizations, the curriculum that they're implementing in schools, there are often really nuanced differences between what you might hear on Fox News and what's actually going on. Now, that's not to say that what they're actually doing in the real world is good. It's not by any means. But we want to watch these trainings to make sure that we really understand what this stuff looks like in the real world. This is not about talking points. This is not about the Coke Be Less White thing. This is about truly understanding the nefarious actions that these people are taking to try to enact a little cultural revolution right here in the United States by changing the way we think, changing our language, all that good stuff. So that's what we do at happy hour, just to bring a little bit of levity to it, because, you know, this stuff doesn't always have to be serious. We can have fun. It's okay. So if you're ready to get going for today, like the reason we learn says, mount that like button. I was on Deb's channel last night. We did a great stream about growing up as a tomboy. If you guys are interested in that, maybe we have some tomboys here in the chat today, or people who are interested in what it's like to be a tomboy. I was certainly a tomboy, as Deb showed last night on her channel by showing my high school pictures. Definitely check that out and subscribe to Deb's channel while you're there. It's awesome. We are streaming today on many different platforms. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. We're on YouTube on 2 different channels. We're on my primary channel, which is Carlin Borisenko. We are also on my second channel, Actively Unwoke. If you are not currently subscribed to Actively Unwoke, please do so. Happy Hour will eventually be moving over to Actively Unwoke as I continue to evolve my channel. So if you're not yet subscribed, we are broadcasting it there as well. Honestly, just because I'm lazy and I just want the content to be in both places, so that when I do eventually move Happy Hour over to Actively Unwoke, it's not going to be a surprise to anyone. I've been streaming on it the entire time. If you are not on YouTube, we are on Rockfin and we are on Odyssey as well. So welcome to anyone who's watching on either of those platforms. And we do this every Friday at 3 p.m. Now, this week, we have a special training because last night, while I was on Deb's stream, there was someone in the chat that said, Carlin, I had to attend a training with Kate Slater. I was like, oh my God, Kate Slater's still around. And apparently this person had to attend a training at the Newburyport Public Library, which is a public library in Massachusetts. Newburyport, really, really, really bougie town in Massachusetts. And apparently they paid Kate Slater to do an anti-racism training with them. And I'm trying to get access to that training, but I don't have it yet. But what I do have, what I did manage to find, I was like, why don't we just bring Kate back for the good old days? We can hear what Kate's been doing. If you guys don't remember Kate Slater has made several appearances on Happy Hour, most of them completely accidental. Kate Slater used to be a doctoral student at the University of New Hampshire. Kate Slater was involved in webinars that were promoting against the anti-CRT bill that I was working on in New Hampshire. So we met Kate Slater when she was actively campaigning against the anti-CRT bills. We watched several webinars there. You might also recognize Kate Slater from that really awkward Instagram live with the teacher Will Rush, I think, who was basically accosted by 3 anti-racist trainers, and this went totally viral on the internet. Kate was involved in that. And the biggest thing with Kate is that she kept just showing up in my happy hour streams, just like accidentally. And so I eventually reached out to her directly and I was like, Kate, do you just want to come on the channel? And she, of course, said nope. And then she blocked me on Instagram. And so then I issued a challenge to her on Instagram. I did a little video basically saying, "Hi, Kate. Come on my channel, Kate. Have a uncomfortable discussion, Kate. What could possibly go wrong?" And so then Kate posted something on her Instagram. Hang on, let's pull it up. I should have pulled this up beforehand. I'm sorry, guys. I've been busy all day. But let me show you what happened to Kate Slater after I challenged her on Instagram, because it's pretty awesome. It's awesome. So after I challenged Kate on Instagram, she posted this thing on her profile where she basically said that all white people are racist. And I took a screenshot of it and I put it on Twitter. And then it ended up getting Kate on the cover of the Daily Mail. This is what she posted on her Instagram after I challenged her. "For all the white folks, I invite you to take a moment." Oh, that's not it. There was another one. Do they have the other one? Hey, God. Oh, I hate the Daily Mail's website. There's like 8,000. Oh, here it is. This is what she posted. 2, yes, all white people are racist, and that all white people have conditioned to be in a society where one's racial identity determines experiences. Now, this made national news. They covered this on Fox News because Kate is also the assistant dean of students at Brandeis. So I take full credit for getting Kate Slater outed as someone who should not be taken seriously, but she just keeps being like popping up in these trainings. So today we are going to watch Keeping It Real about CRT with Dr. Angel Jones and Dr. Kate Slater. And this was from a couple months ago, so it's still pretty recent, because the guy in Deb's chat last night was basically like, "Carlin, this training was insane." And I can't get a recording of that training yet. I'm working on it, but we do have this. So we're going to get a little update on what Kate Slater has been doing since she made international news for being an assistant dean of students at Brandeis. Yeah, Kieran says, "Hit the thumb, Kate. Don't hit the thumbs down button on my channel. Hit the thumbs down button on this. Not on my channel. You have to mount the like button. Even if you don't like Kate Slater, I hope you guys are watching because, you like me in some respects. I don't know. But so we're going to watch Kate Slater and we're going to see what she has to say. But you guys know we've got some other orders of business to take care of first. Now, here's the thing. Normally I drink during happy hour. And I do have a single beer. I have a single beer here in reserve just in case. But the thing of it is I've actually been on a juice cleanse for like the past several days. And so, like, I probably really shouldn't drink. I may open a single beer just because it's happy hour and it's Friday. But really what I have on the table today to drink is I have this melon lemonade, watermelon lemon mint juice. And I have this green juice that's like cucumber, celery, kale, spinach, romaine, lettuce, and blue-green algae. And so I have some juices that I'm going to drink, not to be alcoholic, because I've been juice cleansing. And if I drink more than a single beer, like I might actually pass out, like, or I would just get like really belligerent, and no one wants that. So I might just like nurse a single beer. We're gonna see what happens. But I am drinking juice today, so if you are not drinking alcohol, that's okay. That's all right. We are all a club today, and we're all gonna suffer through it together. Now, the other thing too, if you've never been to happy hour before, is you want to make sure you download your Unwoke Bingo card. This is just a little game we play to help us pass the time. All bingo cards are different. The link is in the description. You're going to go ahead and generate your card. And then what we do for bingo is you get your free space in the center. And then we want to either get a line or we want to get our 4 corners. And if you get a bingo, just yell out in the chat, "Bingo." We will celebrate together. And once a person gets a single bingo, then we go for blackout bingo. No one has achieved blackout bingo yet that I know of. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But we're still looking for that first person to get blackout bingo on Unwoke Bingo. Nick H says, "In my opinion, Miss Carlin, no makeup is better." Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that very, very much. If you enjoy happy hour and want to support the work I'm doing, the very best way to do it is to join my Locals community. Locals is the best. Locals is where we are not censored on the internet. We know we will always have a home. kb.locals.com. You can join for free. Nothing wrong with joining for free. I would minimally like everyone to join for free just because this gives me a way to communicate with you in case I, get a YouTube ban or a Twitter ban or something like that. So at least join for free. Make sure you're in the community. That will give you the ability to lurk. But if you want to support the work I'm doing, the very best thing you can do is to make sure, oh, Jesus, hang on. I am sucking at promos today. Something just happened crazy on my screen. All right. If you want to support the work I'm doing, you can become a member at $5 a month or more if you're so inclined, but you don't have to, or $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. Or you can make a one-time gift, and that will unlock all of the features in the community. So kb.locals.com, that's the place to be if you want to connect with really awesome people. I love my locals community. They're the best. We did an almost 4-hour Zoom call yesterday. We do Zoom calls twice a week just for people to come together. But we did one that was almost 4 hours long yesterday. We talked about a lot of great things. We have a community Discord that's available for supporters, all that good stuff. Make sure you become a member of my locals. All right, guys, the like button is mounted. We've gotten our orders of business out of the way. Let's dig in and watch some Kate Slater magic. And of course, you guys have got to let me know if the sound is not working for some reason or if I need to turn my volume up or down. It's kind of like difficult for me to tell. I suck at technology. So you guys, I trust you guys to let me know what I need to know. Let's see. Share audio. Bing, bang, boom. Who's ready to get happy hour started? Type Y into the chat if you are ready to start happy hour for today. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. Kate hater. I only bully the like button. No, Mr. Green. No, we mount the like button. Kate Slater needs to be saved by the bell. Yes, 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 yes. All right, guys, let's get started. It's like really loud on my end. Hang on.
Doing?
We're amazing. How are you?
Does that sound good for everyone?
Living the dream.
I am so pumped away for this conversation.
So Kate does this thing where like anytime a black person says something, she just like laughs and does like one of these like little Valley Girl things. Just like watch for that. Oh, by the way, guys, so of course I want everyone to join my locals, of course, but if you are watching on my main YouTube channel and you become a channel member, you do get special access to a Kate furrowed brow emoji. So I think that might come in handy today. I'm just saying. Okay, yeah, Kate is the token white girl. Absolutely.
Conversation for so long, so I'm excited, and I can't continue without saying congratulations to the both of you because I know both of you just had your graduation, so you are officially doctors. So
thank you. I'm so glad that I get to do it with my bestie. It made it that much sweeter. So yeah, life is great, y'all.
There have been very few upsides to getting your doctorate during a pandemic, but Dr. Jones is one of them.
Listen, you all making it look very easy. As you already know, I highly admire the work that you all do in terms of just trying to inform the masses about not just critical race theory, but just everything from just the transparency about just being women in academia to the politics of it and everything that's involved within it. So I just highly admire what you all do. I'm just honored to have you on this platform.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
Yeah. We're excited.
All right. Yes. So
thank you, Janice. Appreciate that.
One thing I like to do is to ask my guest, well, to tell us a little bit about yourselves, but also what ultimately brought you into the field of education. So who wants to get started?
Okay. She's pointing at me, y'all. So I guess that's
right.
me. Hey, y'all. I am Angel.
Hang on. What did Kate just do? Who in the chat knows what Kate just did by allowing Angel to go first? What did she just? This is something Kate does all the time. See if you guys catch it. What did she just do? I know there's a delay between when I talk and when the chat can. Yes, exactly, Reagan. She put the black boys first. She does this all the time. Kate will never answer a question before Black people, because she thinks that if she answers a question, like she's centering whiteness if she answers the question first. So she's trying to uplift Black voices. She's checking her privilege. Now that you know it, you'll see it every single time.
My pronouns are she, her, and Aya.
Pronouns.
I am an educator. It is not just what I do. It is who I am. It is the gift that God has given me.
It is her lived experience.
It is literally what wakes me up every day. I always say it makes my heart go pitter patter. And it really does. It is not something I feel like I have to do. It's something I get to do. Like I love, 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 love teaching, but never thought that it was what I was going to do. My bachelor's is actually in political science. I was a pre-law major at Syracuse University and wanted to go to law school. I still low-key want to, and might eventually. But I started teaching law to fourth graders and fell in love with the teaching aspect of it more than the law aspect. And that kind of was the bug that bit me. And I've been in education now for about 17 years in many different ways, from middle school counselor, high school counselor. Now I teach undergraduates, masters, and doc students. And I love it and cannot and will not imagine my life without educating in some way, shape, or form. Besties.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Kate Slater, and my pronouns are she and hers. Oh. And actually, unlike Dr. Jones, I don't necessarily feel like my path to education was very straightforward. It was actually very, very, very kind of circuitous, but circling around the eventual title of educator. Like Dr. Jones, I did not think I was going to be in education. My background was in English and theater, but I loved working in college admissions. And so
really, her background was in theater. It is in theater. Is anyone surprised at this revelation? I am not.
I started working in college admissions after graduation, and then I found my way to an educational nonprofit that supported underrepresented students of color in applying to master's and PhD programs. And that was really my first insight into beginning to understand and starting to interrogate the structures and systems that I saw in higher education. And so that led me to go back and get my PhD to really begin to, again, understand how inequities show up specifically in educational policies in higher education. And through that, I started teaching courses, and now I'm working in administration at a college. But Brandeis, I say that because I never in my life really thought.
Brandeis University. Kate is the assistant dean of students at Brandeis University. That is where Kate works. Assistant dean of students, Brandeis University. Majority white school. 70% of the students at Brandeis are white. Just keep that in mind.
Of myself as an educator, even though I was working in these educational spaces, they always felt tangential to where the work was actually being done in the classroom. And it's only been recently that I've really understood myself in these spaces as being an educator, albeit a non-traditional one.
Awesome, awesome. And I know for myself, education was something that wasn't a vision for me growing up. I was thinking I was going to go into the NBA and go into Major League Baseball because I was really into sports, and I still am.
I want to say something nice. I actually really do like Angel's lipstick. I think it looks great. That's my nice thing for the day.
This day, but you know, as you get older, you start to realize that, you know, when you're 5'9", 5'10", and you're a wet 150 pounds, you're not going to get those Division I scholarships. That's highly unlikely. So you need to change your path. So
Amen.
That's what redirecting me into education. But listen,
there's always coaching, right? There's always coaching.
They're the dream.
The coaching is, there you go. And coaching is education.
It sure is.
No, it's not.
No, for sure.
No. So
ladies, I mentioned not so long ago that you all just graduated from your respective universities. And I know the path to getting your doctorate is a rigorous one, and it's a very tedious one. And there are a lot of challenges that come into play. So what I'm interested in knowing from each of you is what were the ups and downs to your journey to professorship in your respective universities? and then being women, because we have to talk about intersectionality, right? We got to talk about
intersectionality. Bingo
that
word.
comes into play when you're navigating the politics of academia and just getting to where you currently are right now. And I'm interested in knowing, so in your case, Angel, what does it look like, you know, being an Afro-Latina within this space? And then for you, Kate, being a white woman and a co-conspirator for BIPOC, what does that look like within that same academic?
A co-conspirator with BIPOC. Okay, maybe that's another term for ally.
Space. So if we could just touch on that a little bit.
That was a lot of questions. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. That's not a lot of questions. I don't know why woke trainers always act as though questions are just all encompassing of everything, when it's like, what was it like for you to go to school? Oh God, that's a big question. That's just there's so much to unpack there. No, there's not. What was it like for you to go to school? It's really not that hard. What was it like for you to go to school?
All right. So I would say being an Afro-Latina in the academy is... Do
you notice the accent? It's
an adventure, to put it mildly. It is not a place that honestly I saw myself ever being. I'm first gen college student. So the idea of a PhD just wasn't something I ever thought of. And based on the way the academy is structured, they never saw me there either. And I think that they made it clear that not only did they not see me there, they didn't want me there. So I dealt with microaggressions, both racial microaggressions that attack me for being Black, but also gendered racial microaggressions that specifically come at me for being a Black woman.
Okay, so who wants to bet that she's going to give exactly 0 examples of microaggressions that she experienced? They never give examples. Microaggressions, for people who don't know, microaggressions is basically anything that anyone can possibly be offended by, ever. There's no consistency with microaggressions. The only person who thinks that microaggressions are a real thing is a guy named Daryl Wing Su, who works at Columbia, who's the guy that invented the term microaggressions, and he wrote a book about, I think he wrote a book. He's written a lot of papers about it, but he makes a lot of money going around consulting about microaggressions. He is the only one who has done research that say microaggressions are a real thing. There is no research to back up that microaggressions are a real thing, other than the person who literally invented and profits off of microaggressions being a real thing.
And I think getting your PhD is already one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. So
it's really not that hard.
Regular pressures of getting your PhD coupled with microaggressions, it was a struggle for me on a regular basis. I often questioned if I was going to make it to the end. Like I knew that I had the determination to get there, and my work ethic is on 10 at all times, but I still wondered if I could make it to the end, just because of the mental and emotional toll that was being experienced by my body, by my...
Listen, I don't want to make it sound like a PhD is the easiest thing in the world to get, because it takes a lot of effort, but it's not hard. At least I didn't find it to be hard. What, like, the thing that's hard is just showing up every day and like consistently doing the research and consistently like reading so many flipping papers and writing responses to those papers and then conducting research. Thank you, Alexander DeJohn, for the super chat. But like, doing a PhD is not like that hard. But I also don't begrudge, like, I'm not one of the, obviously I have a PhD. I think that people do this for a variety of reasons. For me, it was a self-actualization exercise. I don't want to dismiss the amount of work that goes into it, but it's also not an if you want to do a PhD, it is not an insurmountable obstacle for anyone. It just show up and keep up with what's going on. The biggest problems come when you're just like, when you just don't keep up with the work, but it's an achievable goal for anyone. Writing a dissertation sucks though. Dissertation sucks. Real bad.
I actually ended up in the hospital twice with symptoms of racial battle fatigue, just because of the physical manifestations.
Wait. Did she just say she ended up in the hospital twice because of racial battle fatigue? Hang on. Let's rewind. I was pontificating about PhD. She was talking about being in the hospital on racial battle fatigue.
my work ethic is on 10 at all times. But I still wondered if I could make it to the end, just because of the mental and emotional toll that was being experienced by my body, by my mind. I actually ended up in the hospital twice with symptoms of racial battle fatigue, just because of the physical manifestations of what was happening.
With symptoms of racial battle fatigue. Hang on. I'm going to Google racial battle fatigue real quick. Racial battle. Holy shit. Guys, hang on. Pause. Look at what came up when I Googled racial. This is a real fucking thing. Racial battle fatigue. Why BIPOC remote employees are fleeing. Okay, let's read. I'm sorry. We have to pause. We have to understand what we're talking about. Racial fucking battle fatigue. Are you kidding me? Racial battle fatigue, RBF, was a term coined in 2008 by critical race theorist William Smith. It was originally used in reference to the experiences of African American men in America, but is now expanded to describe the negative and racially charged experiences of all people of color, POCs, in the United States. William defines racial battle fatigue as cumulative result of a natural race-related stress response to de-stressing mental and emotional conditions. These conditions emerge from constantly facing racially dismissive, demeaning, insensitive, and or hostile racial environments and individuals. I'm about to open the beer. Hang on, we're going to read this whole thing. We have to do the work and educate ourselves on racial battle fatigue. Smith describes RBF as public health and mental health illness. Smith believes that racial battle fatigue stems from racism and microaggressions, and in order to view these acts in today's society, one must not look for gross and obvious, but the subtle, cumulative, mini assault is the substance of today's racism. Nick H says, we are getting our first blackout today. How sad. You know, don't speak too soon, man. That fat studies thing we looked at the week before was pretty epic. I might have to open the beer. Okay. Racial microaggressions are a form of psychological warfare and are defined as subtle verbal and nonverbal insults directed at people of color. Notice color is capitalized, often automatically or unconsciously. Layered insults based on one's race, gender, class, sexuality, language, immigration status, phenotype, accent, or surname. Cumulative insults, which cause unnecessary stress to people of color while privileging whites. Okay, this is enough where we can read. People of color experience daily battles of attempting to deflect racism, stereotypes, and discrimination in predominantly white spaces, and must always be on guard or wary of the next attack they may face. Racial battle fatigue causes people of color to experience various forms of mental emotional battle strain, which can lead to psychosociological symptoms. Symptoms of RBF are suppressed immunity and increased sickness, tension headaches, trembling and jumpiness, chronic pain in healed injuries, elevated blood pressure, and a pounding heartbeat. And when people of color with RBF anticipate racially motivated conflicts, they may experience rapid breathing, an upset stomach, or frequent bodily functions I don't think I need to say. All right. Other possible symptoms are constant anxiety, ulcers, increased swearing or complaining. This is just describing being woke. These are just the symptoms of being woke. Insomnia and or stress, anxiety, dreams, rapid mood swings, difficulty thinking or speaking coherently, and emotional and social withdrawal in response to racial microaggressions or while in environments of mundane racial stressors. The stressors can lead to long-term health issues and cause POCs to lose confidence in themselves and their self-worth. Racism is often preserved as a personal battle And after facing that battle continuously in predominantly white spaces, people of color may experience RBF and are left mentally, physically, and emotionally drained. And when RBF goes untreated or dismissed, this stress-related psychological and social and physiological disease can be lethal and kill gradually and stealthily through hypertension and poor health attitudes and behaviors. You heard it all here first. Racial battle fatigue is a real thing. The more you learn. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's get the video back up. I just can't. I can't with this reality. I cannot.
To me, and even though I study racial battle fatigue and study microaggressions, I still wasn't able to identify the symptoms in my own body, because when you're in it, it's so hard to see it, right? And I think because there's stress related to being a doc student already, I think I was just explaining everything away. And a lot of my research that looks at how Black women cope with microaggressions, we like to normalize it, right? Or just act like it's not there because it's such a regular, everyday part of our lives. But it wasn't until I started to look at my triggers. Okay, when you're feeling this,
I'm going to finish my juice and then I'm opening the beer.
Right before, there was a white professor who was the king of microaggressions when it came to me. And every time I would hear the email notification sound, my pacemaker would go off. I have a heart condition because I was worried it was him and didn't know if he was going to say something sideways to me again. So like,
see, the thing is, what these people are describing is it's just a response to stress, but stress oftentimes is self-inflicted. This is nothing new. What we just read, this racial battle fatigue thing, this is nothing new. This is so there's a dude named Hans Seiley. He's considered the godfather of stress research, and he was researching stress and publishing about it in medical journals in the 50s. And he discovered this thing called general adaptation syndrome, which basically says that when we are under emotional stress, eventually that emotional stress is going to have a physical manifestation in our body. And so, and it manifests physically in different ways. I mean, it has like all the symptoms that we just read. You could have anxiety, you could have depression, you could have like your teeth gnashing, you could have stomach aches, you could have tension headaches. All those things are general stress responses. And the thing about the woke left is they inflict the stress on themselves when they see everyone around them as racist and against them every single day. They self-inflict this. Racial battle fatigue is not inflicted by anyone else. It's inflicted by these people on themselves. They want to be made sick. Because really, if you did a PhD in critical race theory, are you ever going to give up the notion that this is a real thing? No. George Andre Veloso Nunez says, if increased swearing is a symptom of racial battle fatigue, there is a pandemic of it in Rio de Janeiro despite of race, age, or social extract. Stress usually is self-inflicted. It is not inflicted by other people. It is self-inflicted based on how you see the world. If you want to change your mood, if you want to change your stress level, the very first thing you have to do is change your perspective. Yeah, Edward Thomas over on Facebook says they are addicted to misery. That's exactly right. They're addicted to misery. They're addicted to outrage. They constantly need to feed that addiction, and that's why they end up getting sick. And racial battle fatigue is not what it is. It is just a general response to stress. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Having to go through that on a regular basis, my body literally was like, we can't do this anymore. And I remember the doctor was like, you need to remove what is causing you the stress. And I'm like, I'm not about to remove the program. So like, we need to figure something out. At the time,
Edward X. Winston says the name that causes RBF above all others is Thomas Sowell. Possibly. Or Larry Elder, or Candace Owens, or any of the other, or Nicki Minaj, man. Nicki Minaj in the last week has caused probably a lot of RBF. Oh, shout out to Nicki Minaj.
I was seeing a psychiatrist again also, and he was like, I can't raise your medication anymore, Angel. Like, you need to remove yourself. And I was like, y'all don't understand. I'm not leaving this program, right? So really having to decide, like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not about to let these people kill me, right? Like, literally kill me. So I feel like I really had to rethink how I was approaching the situation, how I was seeing myself,
She just said that racial battle fatigue inflicted on her by the PhD program that she chose to be in was literally killing her. Literally. No, you seem to be alive and well. You just had a response to stress that you inflicted on yourself, probably in the course of doing research for your PhD in critical race theory or whatever it happens to be in.
I was not advocating for myself. I needed to start doing so because I was literally not fighting for a degree anymore. I was fighting for my life in a way that I didn't.
Dare to dream, Christian. Dare to dream. Dare to dream.
Wow. Whew. Man.
I told you it was a lot.
No, this is heavy. This is heavy. And I want to get more into that in a little bit later. But Kate, why don't you share your journey?
Sure. So, my journey had, I would say, some parallel challenges just from being a woman in academia. Dr. Jones and I did our graduation toast with each other, but we also talked very frankly about some of the challenges we both experienced. And for me, I'm the primary breadwinner in my family. My husband does contract work. And so when I applied to grad school, I had to continue to work full time because we used my benefits and my salary. And so for me,
where Kate was working, I think when she was in grad school, was in this little social justice organization where she was doing anti-racist training. That's where she was working.
My options for my PhD program were really limited because they were programs that were going to allow me to work a 40-day work week and then do my program full time at the same time. And so, for
Patricia asked where she got her PhD. University of New Hampshire. This is how I know Kate Slater. She did her PhD at the University of New Hampshire. She was doing all these webinars at the University of New Hampshire. She did a webinar at the University of New Hampshire that is still, to this day, on the University of New Hampshire's website, where she said the responsibility of white employees at the University of New Hampshire was to shut up and listen to Black people and not question what they were saying. So it was the University of New Hampshire is responsible for all of this. Thank you, UNH. My tax dollars are being spent well. Emily L. says, people get addicted to feeling offended all the time because it gives them a high. Being self-righteous and morally superior feels good. Mark Manson, author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, a great book that everyone should read. But yeah, that's absolutely right. We can get addicted to emotions because every time we have an emotion in our brain, what happens is our brain releases hormones into our body so that we physically experience the emotion we're experiencing in our head. Okay? So think about when you have a nightmare. What happens when you have a really vivid nightmare? You might wake up and your heart might be racing. You might be sweating. Your fists might be clenched. Your whole body might be shaking. You didn't just run a 5K. You just were laying in bed and had a nightmare. But what happened is when you had that nightmare, you had all these scary thoughts going into your head and your brain released hormones into your body so that you physically felt the emotions you were experiencing in your head. That doesn't just happen when we have nightmares. That happens any time we have an emotion. And so if you are experiencing stress over and over and over again, every single day, I see this with people in the workplaces like all the time. They'll say, I hate my boss. I hate my boss. I hate my boss. I hate my boss. They're stressed every day about their boss. Well, what happens when the boss goes on vacation? The first 2 days are like, great. The employee's like, yeah, I can do what I want to do. I'm not stressed out anymore. My boss is gone for 2 weeks. Around day 3 or 4, what happens is the employee starts creating problems for themselves where no problem exists because they miss the feeling of those emotions or of those hormones releasing into their body. They have literally become physically addicted to those emotions. And so they have to go and create problems so they can experience stress, so they can get their hit of emotions. It's the same thing with the woke. They are angry all the time. They're upset all the time. And when you're upset all the time, you need to, like, even if you're having a really good day, you're like laying on a beach somewhere and you're like, nothing's going on. You're going to start creating problems just so you can feed your addiction. It's nefarious, man. The Reason We Learn says not a single example of a microaggression in all that heavy answer. Nope. No examples. They never give examples. Never, ever, 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 ever.
3 years, I did coursework 3 nights a week. I would drive and like be on campus and, have my hour commute and work a 40-hour work week. And that became even more complicated when I had our daughter, right before I sat for my qualifying exams. And I think to say all that, what was most challenging for me is just realizing how many systems in higher education are not set up for students that are not doing the student thing full time. There was not a lot of support. I took, for example, a perfect example is I took a maternity leave of absence, quote unquote, for a semester. And the university didn't even have a code for that in their system. So what they did was
you don't say that traditional universities aren't set up for working adults, because I take a rash of shit on the internet for going to a non-traditional university specifically because it was set up for working adults. You don't say, Kate. You don't say. There are universities out there that are set up for working adults. It's just not the one you attended.
Had me as withdrawn. So I didn't have my library access for an entire semester when I was trying to write my dissertation proposal. These are things that they just don't think of. And I think on a personal level, what was really challenging is I know my friends and coworkers meant well, but they would just always say, "You're Superwoman. You're doing it all." And I was like, I don't feel like Superwoman. I feel like a shell of a human being. Like I'm all these 3 things. I'm working. I'm an associate director. I'm a student. I'm a mom. I'm a partner. I'm a friend. I don't feel like I'm doing any of those things well. Like I feel like I am scraping by in all those areas. And even though it was my choice to build all this life with all of these multi-hyphenates in there, there was a time where I just felt, quite frankly, like a shell of a human being because I was giving 25% to every one of those areas. And it was worth it for me. I am so proud of the work I did, and I believe in the work I did. And
no one cares, Kate. George Andre Veloso Nunez, if you're addicted to anger and you don't have a source of anger, you check Twitter to get your hit. That is exactly right. Twitter is a toxic cesspool of a website that keeps everyone warring with each other all the time. You know what I think is like so? Anytime I tweet something on Twitter and someone disagrees with me, they're like, "You're so angry. Why are you so angry, Carlin?" And I might just be sitting here and I might be like drinking a beer and chilling. I'll be like, they'll be like, "You're obviously angry." And what's happening is they're projecting their own anger onto me. This happens to me almost every day. I'm like, I'm not angry. You might be angry because you're living your life on Twitter. Don't live your life on Twitter. Twitter sucks. Not saying quit Twitter. You don't want to leave the battleground, but Twitter sucks.
Felt it was important for me to show Julia, my daughter, you can do this. But I also don't want to pretend that, just like Dr. Jones said, there's not a cost. There is a cost to this.
Yes.
And the other piece of that is being...
Yes. When you are going after big goals, there is generally a cost to it. It's like these people think that everything should be easy. Nothing worth working for is easy. That's the whole point. The only reason that you achieve that high level of like satisfaction at completing it is because it was hard. If something is easy, it doesn't bring that satisfaction that you get when you achieve like a really hard goal.
A white woman in a co-conspirator role feels very fraught.
Is co-conspirator a thing now?
Show me a white person who's a co-conspirator who says, "I'm good, I'm secure, I got this. I feel like I know what I'm doing," and I will say, "No way." When you represent whiteness, which is a system of oppression, and you are trying to actively do everything.
Kate is owning that she herself represents a system of oppression. Who nominated Kate to represent all of white people? Yeah, we're going to have to add co-conspirator to the bingo card. You're right. You're right, Monica. Yep. But this is what I keep telling you. Like, this is why people get confused about critical race theory. They think it's about the color of your skin. It is not. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin at all. Critical race theory loves Kate. They love her. She's very white. They love her because how they define whiteness. She said a system of oppression. I say it's who owns the power structure, because critical race theory is not about race. It is about power. It is about using race to gain more power.
everything in your power to divest from that power that you are just innately given, you constantly feel like you're stepping in it. I feel like I'm stepping in.
All right. So, Thought Criminal, we do not say critical race theory is anti-white on this channel. Now, I want to highlight this because he's a little racist, isn't he? Look at his icon. He's a little racist. We're going to be seeing a lot of these people over the next couple of weeks because I'm about to release weeks worth of research that Kieran and I have done that these people are not going to like. So I just want you guys to get used to it. Like when you see stuff like this that says it's anti-white is very bad language. It is not anti-white. We are not using that language on this channel. And Thought Criminal is about to get banned. Block user. But we're going to be talking about that over the next couple of weeks. I'm just showing it to you guys as an example. We don't allow people like that on this channel. We do not use that language on this channel. That is bad.
In it all the time. And so sitting in that space where I feel like I'm never going to be really good at this, I'm getting used to it, but it doesn't make it any easier. And of course, I recognize, like, when I say easier, I recognize that I'm talking about a white woman giving up my power. Like, that's easy in the scheme of things, but emotionally, it takes a toll as well.
Wow. And this is for I'm not saying this is great because some of this is traumatic, I'm sure. But when I'm listening to both you ladies, I just can't help but think about what goes on in academia. And as someone who's from outside looking in, as someone who's not in it, I just can't imagine just how difficult it is to travel down this path. And, just the other day, I was reading up on Nicole Hannah-Jones, who we all should know as she is the creator of the 1619 Project, which has received a lot of backlash, particularly from the political right, and also ties into the greater conversation around critical race theory,
which has been debunked and proven not to be an accurate recantation of history.
Which is something we're going to get into a little bit. We'll segue into that. But even that alone, just women in academia, particularly Black women and just women in color. And I've had a lot of women of color in academia on this podcast talk about how difficult it is to navigate those waters. So I'm curious to know, in terms of what tenure looks like, and I know you're very much early in that, and I don't know if that's something you're actively pursuing, given what's going on. I'm curious to know, what does tenure look like in general, in terms of obtaining it, and do those requirements change depending on what institution you're in?
So getting
Charlie, if you want to bring this language onto my channel, you are going to get blocked. If you want to bring this language onto my channel, you are going to get blocked. This is going to be your only warning. If you don't understand why yet, you will next week. But I do not allow this language on my channel from anyone. You are free to say whatever it is you want, but you will not use this language on my channel. And I will be explaining more about that next week. It is entirely your choice. I have now set the boundary. It is your choice if you would like to continue. And that's for everyone else too. I'm not screwing around with this. Not screwing around in any way, shape, or form. This is not a joke.
Getting a tenure track faculty position is like it's like the coveted position that everybody wants. Like that's what you aspire to, because then the goal is to ultimately become a tenure professor, full professor, and whatever. And I think for me, that used to be my goal, right? And I say used to be because I feel like my priorities have changed. How I see myself and the power that I have has changed. And I've been very open on social media about it, but I don't remember what the final number was, but I think I applied to maybe 45 positions and got one interview out of the 45 positions that I had applied to, and just started to feel really discouraged and defeated, and just not good enough, which is a constant feeling in the academy from when you start your program until forever, apparently. And I think for me, once I got out of my feelings, I decided to start my brand on social media, just to start my company, to start my consulting and doing the things that I'm doing now. And I had no idea the impact that I could actually have doing it this way versus doing it in the academy, right? So I think for me, we're conditioned and socialized to believe that success has to look one way, that being a rigorous researcher has to look one way, right? That making it looks one way. And I know differently now, right? Like I believe in public scholarship.
So Sam is asking, what does the term co-conspirator mean in CRT? So this is actually the first time that I have heard. This was back in July, so this is relatively recent. This is the first time I've heard them replace ally with co-conspirator. How I'm interpreting this is they're using it to replace the word ally, which is like, you know, a good white person that you know, basically like shows up and shuts up and listens to black people. So now they seem to be calling it a co-conspirator in this. I think they're interchangeable.
I am doing public scholarship. I've had an impact via social media in a way that I never would have had I had a full-time tenure track position this whole year. So I think for me, that's not to say that I wouldn't accept a
they
tenure
do
track
call
position,
each other comrades,
but it's no longer what I'm chasing.
They do.
Let them chase me now, because I know what I'm bringing to the table in a way that I didn't.
Just to be really, really clear, I do not ban people using the term anti-white because they disagree with me. I ban people using the term anti-white because it is a term that is actively being pushed by white identitarians using the anti-CRT movement. They are actively trying to get people to use that term, and I will be releasing extensive research that has taken weeks and weeks and weeks to put together next week to illustrate this specifically. This is not about disagreement. This is about advancing language from very bad people that are actively trying to get that language used in the mainstream. I won't be a part of it. If you guys want to be a part of it, that is your choice. I will not do it. I don't think I've ever met someone who, 1, worked for the power they have, 2, advocate for giving up power, 3, actually gave up any real power. Well, that's exactly the point. And I think that's one of the things that's so nefarious about this whole ideology is it actively teaches people that in order for one group to become powerful, another group has to give them that power. That's not true. That's not real. That's made up.
No, before. So I don't need that to do good work. I don't need that to educate, advocate, and liberate, which are the things that are always going to drive the work that I do.
Yeah, go ahead. Talk that talk. That's what I'm talking about. Yes. All right. All right, Kay, what about you?
So I'm grateful that I had this position at the IRT, because what it meant to, I think, support scholars of color who wanted that gold standard of academia. Many of them wanted to enter into that space. I had a really clear understanding from very early on, even before I considered my PhD, of what the pitfalls looked like for people who wanted to enter the professoriate. I had a very clear, like the kind of view that a lot of people don't get, because so many of our alumni would tell us really openly about the process of trying to find a tenure track job and just what a minefield it was. So I was one of the rare people who went into my PhD program saying, I'm going to do this 5 years. I do not want to be academia at the end of, I do not want to be faculty, at the end of this. And I didn't quite know what I wanted my path to be at the end. I knew that I
really hope they start talking about CRT soon.
Teachers, I was doing the kind of work
I want them to talk about CRT. I was promised CRT in this episode. If they don't start talking about CRT, we'll find something else. Kate Slater is ubiquitous on the internet, so we will find something else. Nick H. So she got RBF from people coming at her, and now she says she's going after them. They're revealing, and they want this addiction. Well, of course they want the addiction. Of course they do. I mean, they again, this is a comfort zone for them. Once you're addicted to something, whether that thing is good or bad, it becomes a comfort zone. And then it's very hard to get out of it at that point. Guys, mount that like button. Oh, by the way, just so you guys know, Because I will be like separate topic, because I will be revealing like putting stuff out there about the anti-white language next week. I am fully expecting the white identitarians to come and attack my channel again. As a precaution, I'm going to be putting measures in place that only people who are subscribed to the channel can actually be in the chat. So if you are not subscribed to the channel and you want to chat when we do these live streams, please make sure you subscribe now, because next week you're going to have to wait like a pretty big period of time in order to actually access the chat. And this is purely a defensive move because I already know that these assholes want to attack my channel again. I've seen them talking about it. So just if you are not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed if you want to be in the live chat. Otherwise, don't complain next week like I didn't warn you.
I wanted to do. And I had to trust that getting the PhD would allow me to do that work maybe in different, more expansive ways. Dr. Jones and I talk a lot about how tenure is a really, in many ways, it's a very broken system. Just like graduate education is in many ways a very broken system. As you know, Nicole Hannah-Jones is a perfect example. All the accolades in the world don't necessarily grant you a spot. All the scholarship in the world doesn't necessarily grant you any easier process. And yet there are people right now who have that full professorship who...
It's as though Nicole Hannah-Jones should be granted tenure at a major university for lying just because she's Black. George Andre Veloso Nunez says, I have to get back to work. Mind your language, people. It's not just what we mean, but the way we say it that matters when talking about CRT. Thank you, George. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's not as bad right now. I only have it set for 5 minutes right now, but it's going to be going way up. So if you want to be able to chat next week, I suggest you subscribe now.
Went through grad school 40 years ago and quite frankly, like really need to retire and really need to get out of there and make room for the new guard. So it's a really fraught process because it is the coin of the realm, but tenure itself insulates many faculty from having to grow pedagogically, from having to update their teaching styles, from having to come up with new research and stay on the cutting edge of research.
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, right now, I kind of get the best of all worlds. I get to do public scholarship, just like Dr. Jones online. I am a CRT scholar that's never published an academic article about CRT. You know, that's something I want to do in the next year. I know CRT, I've spent 5 years reading CRT, but I don't have that traditional academic accolade that would signal, quote unquote, I'm a CRT scholar. And yet I get to be out here talking about it in these public spaces and maybe even reaching wider audiences than I would if I was in an academic journal.
I wonder if Kate's opened up her Instagram
in higher education. I get to be a lecturer in courses that I'm interested in, but I don't have to do that full time. And then being, you know, an assistant dean in student affairs, I get to talk to students about how they stay whole in a system that's broken. So I'm finding myself, by having these different facets to my roles, I'm scratching all the itches that I wanted to scratch, but I'm not doing it in a way where it's held in the container of one position. And I think that's really awesome, just like Dr. Jones said.
And that's why I appreciate the two of you, because what you're really doing is you're reframing the way that scholarship is in academia, but also you're doing your part to dismantle white supremacy culture in academia.
It's their sound, not mine.
You know, Angel, you were talking about this earlier. There's this one way to do scholarship. You have to, you know, publish an article. You have to do an op-ed, and that's part of the tenure process. You have to publish a certain number of publications and books, and also your teaching performance with students, which can be subjective, because if you are talking the way that you all talk, you have some students who will give you a bad evaluation because they may not agree fundamentally with your thoughts on race and sex and gender and everything else, and that can go against your assessment. So that whole process, the little that I know, is very...
Okay, I'm sure that Kwame is like a very nice guy, but this isn't mine. Your pal, this is not mine. This is them. This is the video. This is not mine. This is them. I take no responsibility for the shitty sound they have on their side. But like, Like, what the hell is he saying? Honestly. Like, does anyone understand what he's saying? I do not understand. I've mentioned this before. Never cede the language space to the identitarians. It's all about group identity over the individual. Well, the problem is that the identitarians have become really goddamn successful at infusing their language into the anti-CRT discussion. And like I said, I'm gonna lay all this out for you guys next week. We have worked very hard to make this very, 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 very easy to understand for people. So you're going to be able to see exactly what they're doing, exactly what language they're using, exactly how it shows up. So you're going to get this next week and we're going to talk about it. But this is a real problem that's going to become more pronounced. But anyway, like I really don't understand what Kwame is saying. And the sound problems are on their end, not mine.
Very subjective and can be very disadvantageous for folks like yourselves who are just brilliant at what you do. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it feels good to push back, right? And as critical race scholars, like that's what we do, right? We push back against dominant ideologies, right? And you know, so when it comes to tenure, when you're evaluated on research, teaching, and service. And research being what they care about the most, specifically journal article publications. And as I'm like, yes, I believe in the research, but I'm like, I'm an educator, right? And I believe in the service piece. I believe in the teaching piece, right? But I feel like universities don't value those pieces as much as they do. And then even as a Black woman, the things that I do that are 100% service, the university might not count as service, right? So there's this additional Black text that we do because there are so few Black faculty members at white institutions. So all of the Black students come to us, right? Whether they're on my class list or not, like they're all going to come to me, right? So I have to do all of the work that the white folks have to do, plus take care and to support my Black students. But there's no way to account for that, you know, in our packet for tenure and promotion. Like they don't care about those things. But I've called the institution out on it. I was doing one of my research presentations, and there was only one black professor in the room. Shocker. And I was a student at the time, and I told him, I was like, Dr. Howard has to do everything the rest of you white professors have to do.
Wait. Pause. Sorry. I just found something. I just want to make sure this is Oh, it was a month ago. Oh man. Dude, okay. Check this out. Look at this workshop that Kate and Angel did together. Look at this. This was a month ago. We missed it, but maybe we can find a recording. From Karen to co-conspirator. This is a real thing. This is real. This is from Kate's Linktree. Download the Anti-Racist Roadmap. Training from Kate Slater. Ooh, media. Just for fun. Your pal, I want you to get a soundboard. It would be great. We could have watch Charlie. You could have Charlie Brown teach sounds for this garbage. Wow. Oh, I see. That's a good idea. Thank you, your pal, for the super chat. That's a good idea. Yeah, I'm slowly but surely. I suck at technology. I suck. I'm slowly but surely trying to up my game. I'm making small iterative improvements, and I will put a soundboard on the list. Thank you, your pal, for the $20. I will allocate that to the purchase of a soundboard. Just for you.
Plus all of this extra stuff, and he doesn't get credit for it, right? So
I know. I was just looking at that. I was just looking at it.
Is. And I just feel like we do a lot of work that should absolutely qualify us for tenure and promotion, but it's not valued the same way because it's so incredibly subjective. But it irks me because they act like it's not subjective, and I'm like, son, all of this is subjective. Like, y'all get to decide what counts as rigorous and what doesn't. Y'all get to decide what counts as academic or scholarly or all of that.
Do you guys see those TikTok videos of like the black girl and her white friend? And the white friend always has to, like, the black girl always explains to the white friend how the white friend microaggressed against her, and then the white friend has to, like, apologize, and they're still best friends. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm talking about? Because this actually, like, Angel and Kate, based on what I'm seeing on Kate's Instagram, they, like, hang out all the time. They do stuff all the time. And I kind of feel like Angel is the black friend who constantly tells Kate how Kate has microaggressed against her. Because Kate's always just like in the background nodding and smiling. He's like, yes, yes, I'm a racist. I'm a white person. I was socialized to be racist. Oh, if you guys haven't seen these, holy shit. If you haven't seen these, maybe I will try to find some. They're both hilarious and scary. No one knows what I'm talking about. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna work on finding some of these TikTok things because they're actually terrifying. All right, stand by. I will do my best to try to find them. But let's continue.
Things when I'd much rather the people who I care about, which is the community and my students, be the ones that decide if they're being impacted or not by the work that I'm doing.
Right. And what you're talking about is really the invisible tax, which we talk about really in K-12 education. Former Secretary Dr. John King, he talks about this, how we have to overexert ourselves to be in service to our students, but also to our schools, because we're the ones that are on the diversity task force. We're the ones that have to take on the students of color who end up in our classrooms because maybe our white counterpart.
I think you're saying Kate is causing Angel's RBF. Possibly, because, you know, Kate's a white person and Kate has already declared that all white people are racist based on how they're socialized. So that means that Kate's a racist white person, and just like she can't be, you know, white people just commit microaggressions all the time against black people. That's just what it means to be white. So I think we can assume that Kate has probably microaggressed against Angel on several occasions. Kate is probably directly responsible for Angel being in the hospital because of racial battle fatigue syndrome. And I just think Kate should take responsibility for that, being that she's a white person. And she declared that all white people are racist because they own whiteness.
Parts can't handle them in their classroom. So it's like, I need you to just, you know, Kwame, just can you hold him for like 5 minutes because I know he likes you and he's going to listen to you, you know, things like that. But that adds up over time.
It sure does. It sure does. Whew.
I can imagine the emotional, like the compounding of that emotional labor, like this is what is creating the echo chamber of elitism that is higher education, right? It is just gatekeeping over and over and over again. You know, Dr. Jones talked about how she barely made it through her doctoral program, not because she wasn't brilliant, not because she wasn't cut out from it, because the emotional and physical tax of what she was experiencing and going through. This is what gatekeeps on all of these levels. You know, Dr. Jones just published her.
It's so interesting that Kate just used the word gatekeeper because the white identitarians really like that word too. Listen, it is okay. I swear at some point I will stop talking about white identitarians, but it's just that I've like had my head in this for like several weeks now. And one of the things that's really striking about it is how much alike the CRT people are with the white identitarians. They have a lot in common. They both hate capitalism. They're both anti-Semitic. They're both looking at things from a collectivist ideology. They both think that Martin Luther King was pro-CRT. There's a whole long list of things that the pro-CRT people have like in common with the white identitarians. Much more than they do, like the white identitarians have much more in common with the pro-CRT people than they do with the anti-CRT people. They both want a society based on race. They both think that race is the most important thing about someone. They'll judge each other by the color of their skin. They don't want a colorblind society. They actually reject a colorblind society, just like the critical race theorists. There's so much alike. It's crazy. It really is.
Article in a tier 1 journal. Did that make her any less of a critical race theory scholar before? Hell no. Yet this is like that kind of accolade signaling that the Academy requires. And it's all crap. It all serves to keep the Academy this white elitist space.
Oh, well. You know, I was about to say Kate actually does have a point when it comes to like scholarship, because she actually legitimately does. Most scholarship is bullshit. But then she said, but it keeps it a white elitist place. Kate, you work at Brandeis. You work at Brandeis. Kate, when are you going to give your job at Brandeis up to a person of color? Why don't you give your job up for Angel? Angel's doing consulting. Maybe she would like a job in the Academy. Why don't you be a good anti-racist co-conspirator and give your job up so that a Black person can have it? That would make you a good co-conspirator, Kate. Put your money where your mouth is, Kate. I'm just saying.
Right. And I think it's things like that that perpetuates respectability politics as it pertains to people of color in academia. And this idea of incrementalism, which also is talked about in critical race theory, where it's like, all right, we're going to take these steps. You know, we're going to take these minor steps to get to where we want to be. We're going to just settle for less and not really push for like the bigger prizes that we're looking for. So like, all right, even though it's going to be extra for me, I'm going to be on this task force. All right, I'll teach this extra section for this class, even though I already have to teach 4 other sections and probably have twice the workload of my other counterparts, you know, in my department. But I'm going to do it because I know that that's what the university needs and it's going to get me to where I need to go. So just this idea of incrementalism, right? So if those are perpetuating, you know, these white supremacist norms, then for the people that want to get into academia and professoria, right? How do you approach it then if you can't be open, but you know what the consequences will be if you are open and you speak your mind? Like, how do you navigate that?
Don't do it. Just kidding.
Nice.
I mean, there are a lot of trash aspects of the Academy. Like Kate and I talk about them ad nauseum. But there are things that I love about it. Like I love being able to be a professor. I love being able to teach. I love being able to do research, right? But I think for me and my advice to other people is that you need to know who you want to be in this space. You need to know going into it what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing
I want to hear you talk about critical race
what
theory.
You're not willing to tolerate and sacrifice, right? Because I feel like when you're in the middle of it, it's so easy to lose yourself. And I think it happens to the best of us. So you have to go in with an intentionality that you've never had before in terms of who you are and who you want to remain. Because yes, we all grow, but I think it's different when we're changing because of growth and we're changing because we're assimilating to the culture that is the Academy, right? And I think for me, I was shucking and jiving so much those first 2 years because I didn't want to piss off white folks, right? I was fully funded, and I'm like, yo, like these white folks are paying your schooling, you don't want to piss them off, and then all of a sudden you're stuck, right? And I think because I was moving that way, I was miserable. And I think for me, once I realized like, no, like you bring something to the table, you bring a lot to the table, right? You don't have to beg them for scraps. You don't have to beg them to keep you because you earned your place. Like they didn't give you this space. You earned your spot and your position here. And so I felt like I was like, wait a minute, like I'm going to let my work speak for me. And I think once I started to move that way, I think that helped me. And then seeing other scholars that live unapologetically and walk in their purpose, I think helps a lot. So for me, I remember seeing Chris Emdin for the first time. I was just like, yo, I want to be like him when I grow up, right? Like just really seeing how much he was himself, whether he was at home, whether he was on campus, whether he was on stage in front of thousands, like Chris is Chris in all of those spaces. And I was like, yo, like, and he's still a professor at Columbia. He's a New York Times bestseller. Like he's still doing these things. So I'm like, wait a minute, like it is possible. Like the Academy wants to make you think that it's not possible to do you and be you in these spaces.
Okay, here's the thing. This is part of the problem with effing critical race theory and this worldview and this perspective is it teaches people all of the things that are not possible in life, and they're all downright lies. The only limitations that you will ever have are limitations that you put on yourself, are limitations that you inflict on yourself. This is one of the things that pisses me off so much about this whole ideology, is it tells people all the things they are not capable of. It lies to them, but they believe it. Because when we believe we are not capable of something, it's a heck of a lot easier to say, well, that thing's just out of reach than actually doing the work to get to the thing you want. Nothing is holding anyone back except for their own thoughts and perspectives about that thing. If you believe that you can't be yourself in the academy, then you are going to act inauthentically. If you believe that you can be yourself in the academy, then you are going to be yourself in the academy. The only one dictating it is your own perspective, but what this ideology teaches fundamentally is that people do not have an internal locus of control. And that is not true. It gives people an out that they can constantly blame rather than looking at themselves and saying, what can I change in order to get what I want?
Cases. But it is, right? So seeing that, but then even with that, habits like, all right, Angel, he's doing it, but he's also a man, right? So he's going to have some privileges that you don't have, right? So you're going to have to navigate a little bit differently than he does. But I've been able to find myself and my voice and move in a way that feels authentic for me. But does that mean that there are certain jobs that aren't going to want me? Absolutely, right?
But not
like,
because
I think it's
you're
very
black.
possible that
Not because you're a woman.
that I didn't hear back from, like, I have a very public persona now, right? So people can Google me and see, you know, what it is I'm about, what it is I care about. And there might be some schools that are like, actually, no, like, we're not feeling what she's saying. So, like, although people might see that as a sacrifice, I'm like, no, like, thank you for letting me know up front who you are, because I don't want to be in those spaces.
Well, this is actually a really good point. She's making a good point. I fear she's making it for the wrong reasons. I fear she's going to come out with something like, they don't want me because I'm black or because I'm an outspoken black woman or something like that, which is not true. But she is correct to say that you don't want a job that doesn't want you. If a potential employer Googles you and finds you're doing stuff on social media, maybe on Twitter or whatever, that they're like, nope, not for us, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Because if it wasn't Twitter, it would be something else. Like, these employers are so persnickety. It's so ridiculous. It sets you up to be in a bad situation where you're constantly having to bend the knee. So she is correct that it is a blessing to be rejected from places that do not want you for authentically who you are and for what you like and for what you look at or any of those things. But I fear she's going to say something like, they don't want me because they Googled me and found out I was a black woman. I don't believe that's true. Marsha says, sent you a message on webpage last week to get in touch. Can't wait to discuss my experience in college a few years ago and where I want to go with it. All right, Marsha, I'll take a look at that. I vaguely remember seeing something come through with your name, but I'll double check. I haven't gotten back to messages in the last week because I've been neck deep in goddamn white identitarian nonsense. But once we're done with that, I can have a life again. All right.
Anymore. Like, I don't want to have to be anywhere where I have to check and job. I don't want to have to be anywhere where I don't get to be me. And if that means I never get a tenure track position, I'm good with that, right? Because what I'm not good with is pretending to be someone that I'm not for them. Like, never am.
Facts.
And there was a piece of that for me where I actually found that when I found my community, I became much more rooted in who I was too. And this is, again, where academia tells you, no, like, don't be friends with people in your cohort because those are your competition for those tenure track jobs. And it's all crap, right? Because, you know, what Dr. Jones has shown through Counterstory, what you've shown, Kwame, is like the power of community to like keep you on the straight and narrow, to keep you like grounded and centered in who you are and what you do is incredibly powerful. And I can remember so vividly the moments where I went into academic spaces and found this beautiful community, and it was so counter to what my notions of academia looked like. But, you know, we saw it at the IRT all the time. You'd be at an academic conference and people would be like, IRT, they'd find you. They would look out for you for jobs. They'd be like, oh my God, I know a job. I know a person here. Let me connect you. And these are like foundationally opposed to what the dominant narrative of an academia experience is like. And I think that for me, when I learned to really lean away from the competitive and cutthroat and individualistic aspects of academia and started to say, no, like, you're not going to get through this alone. You need people to keep you focused. You need people to keep you humble, and you need people to remind you of who you are in the moments where you feel like you've lost touch with who you are. That's what kept me grounded. And that's what's been so rewarding, especially, you know, now after graduating, is that doesn't end for me, right? I get to do this in perpetuity. Right.
Oh man, and that's the dope part about it. And that's what's great about it, is the fact that you can be in collaboration with so many brilliant minds who are doing this work in so many different capacities.
Why aren't we talking about CRT? I was promised CRT.
This is what brings me to really the meat of what our conversation is today.
Thank you.
Critical race theory. And
finally,
you all have been very vocal about it, and
finally,
you've spoken your piece about it in many different
IG doesn't
Lives
she, Edward?
and other platforms. And you've had to even battle some trolls.
All right, we're finally starting to get into it, guys. It looks like we're finally going to start talking about CRT halfway through the dang video. That's all right, because we still enjoy making fun of this entire ideology. If you are just joining, please make sure you mount that like button. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel, turned on notifications, all that good stuff. Also, you want to make sure to join my locals community. The link, or the URL, is in the little ticker that I have rolling across the screen, because I finally learned how to do that. You can go to kb.locals.com. You can actually join for free. Just go to kb.locals.com. That will allow you to lurk in the community, see what's going on. If you do want to support the work I'm doing with a $5 a month gift or $50 for a year, that unlocks all of the features in locals. So that's kb.locals.com/support. All that is in the description below. Let's just take a look, because I'm on different platforms. I'm on Facebook. I'm on 2 YouTube channels. I am on Odyssey. I did get a nice offer from Joe Biden on Odyssey that they will donate if I show my feet. Sadly, I'm just not in a position to show my feet right now. So I'll have to forgo that donation. But shout out to people on Odyssey. I'm also on Rockfin. Let's see. Nothing really is going on over there. That's all right. Let's see. What else? Oh, I'm trying to find the TikTok videos. If anyone remembers the TikTok videos that came out several months ago, it was like of a black woman and her white best friend. And the black woman was always explaining to the white best friend how the white best friend had like microaggressed against her. I'm trying to find them. I have not had luck yet. I would love to find them so we can watch them so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But if anyone knows what I'm talking about, please DM me on Twitter or notify me in some way of how I can find these videos, because I would really like to show them to people. But let's hear what they have to say about critical race theory.
On different social media outlets who are just misinformed about what it is, you know, and I personally love it. I
bet you do, Kwame.
I just hope that you're also prioritizing self-care, because, you know, they're going to believe what they believe. But that's another conversation. So critical race theory, for our viewers and listeners who don't even know what it is, and I actually have here the actual book in case people want to know
which book,
what the actual book is.
Which one?
Y'all see how thick this is?
Okay, which one?
This can be intimidating for you. It's all good. But guess what?
For the record, there's more than one book about critical race theory. That's not the only book that exists. There's many of them. I'm trying to figure out which one that is. I guess we'll see. FM, first super chat, longtime watcher. Thank you, FM, for the super chat. The insecurity exhibited by Jones is sad. I wish you would deal with it without having to sow so much division. Dude, I agree with you. I think that critical race theory keeps people insecure. When you think you are constantly being attacked all day, every day, and that people hate you for who you are, and that you're always going to be kept down for who you are, That gets to you, man. It gets to you. I understand it. I wish. I was saying, I was wondering, Charlie, if it was Derek Bell. Like, I wish that these people would just would wake up and accept that we don't care what your skin color is. I do not care. I'm sure Angel is an awesome person. I'm sure she has many fine qualities. I'm sure we probably have things in common if we actually sat down and talked about things that we like, not race, not politics, not any of those things. I'm sure there's a lot of common ground, but they never give the opportunity to find that common ground. Yeah, I think that's the Kimberly Crenshaw book. Yeah, there's so many critical race theory books. Let's see.
I've been reading this version right here. This is the primer.
Oh.
Which then you compare with this to actually look for key readings that connect to the major themes of critical race theory. And we'll talk more about that. But let us know, what actually is critical race theory and what are the basic tenets of it?
Yes, Kate, educate us, please.
Oh, Dr. Jones, take it away.
Always defers.
Kate loves when I do the intro for it.
She always defers every single time. Every single time. All right, Angel, lay it on us. Let's hear it. Critical race theory is, just as a reminder, James Lindsay would say that critical race theory is a belief that racism is the organizing principle of society. My definition of critical race theory is that critical race theory is an academic ideology started in the 1970s in law school that says that racism exists everywhere, in every person, in every institution, in every interaction, and the job of a critical race theorist is to suss out or explore how, not if, how racism occurred in every single circumstance. Racism is always assumed to have occurred. My definition basically says the same thing, but his says it in way less words. I like the additional words. I like the additional clarification and focus that it provides. But I also like his definition because it is very short and to the point, and it's fundamentally correct. I'm researching media influence in the proliferation of activist movements promoting tribal hatred, wondering if you could recommend some reading. Media influence in the proliferation of activist movements promoting tribal hatred. Hate Inc. Probably. Hate Inc. would be a good thing for you to read. Read Douglas Murray's book, Madness of Crowds. Probably read Woke Inc. Those would be some good places to start. If anyone has any recommendations for HLA 0, I don't know how to pronounce your name, dude, but HLA 0 ROO, please chat them in. Give him some ideas. Or her. Don't want to misgender you.
Perfectly.
Okay, so in a nutshell, critical race theory, it is a framework that acknowledges the roles that race and racism play in our society. It is built on the premise that racism is embedded in the fabric of our systems, all of our systems, right? Whether that's education, healthcare.
We agree. We agree. Now, I don't believe that it's a real thing. Angel does believe it's a real thing. Just because I can define critical race theory doesn't mean I believe that critical race theory is based on any substance. Angel, however, does believe it's real. So does Kate. So does Kwame.
Criminal injustice system, like all of the systems within our country have racism embedded within it. It originally started out of critical legal studies by phenomenal scholars such as Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw and Derek Bell. The CRT that I use specifically is CRT within education. So CRT has been adapted to different fields, but because we're on an education podcast.
Are you saying, Angel, that critical race theory is not just practiced in law schools, that critical race theory is practiced in education? Am I hearing that correctly? Because there was a time there, and it was around the time this podcast, maybe even a little bit before this podcast was made. It was a little bit before, actually, probably like May, June. Do you guys remember when the argument was from the left that critical race theory only happened in law schools? It didn't happen in education. And now all of a sudden we have critical race theory, doctors of critical race theory, no less, telling us, yeah, we're adapted for education. Obviously, because they're all dirty, dirty liars.
And Kate and I are educators. We specifically look at CRT in education. So Dr. Daniel Solorzano came up with the 5 tenets that are based off of the original tenets of CRT. The first one is that racism is endemic, so kind of what I was just talking about. It challenges dominant ideologies and deficit perspectives, right? So
you know what's really funny though? I was thinking about this last night. Do you guys remember last year when racism became a public health crisis? When racism was deemed a public health crisis by major cities in this country and major institutions, and it was actually deemed to be such an important like a health crisis that the priority was racism over COVID. So during an actual pandemic, these people declared that racism was more important than stopping the pandemic. That's why you had all the Black Lives Matter protests. That's why you had all the looting and the rioting, because racism was a public health crisis that was more important and more immediate than COVID. Has anyone heard anyone say that racism is a public health crisis lately? Have we heard people say that racism is a public health crisis? Because I sure as shit haven't. They haven't said racism is a public health crisis in a while. What happened? Did we solve racism? Did we solve racism since last year? Because it was the most important public health crisis of our time. It was more important than the most severe pandemic that any of us have experienced in our lifetime. And now all of a sudden, a mere 12 months later, no one's talking about how racism is a public health crisis anymore, even though when we're talking about vaccination, the African American community is vaccinated at a much lower rate than the general population. Vaccine passports are literally racist because they're going to disproportionately affect the African American community. So all of a sudden, we are not talking about racism as a public health crisis anymore. Racism is no longer a public health crisis. Congratulations, everyone. We cured racism. Racism is over because it is no longer politically convenient.
Alive and well in this country. The third one is the importance of centering the voices and experiences of marginalized folks. The idea that our experiences are real, right? That our accounts of our experiences are good enough, that they should count. And
no, because people fundamentally misinterpret their own experiences all the time. What you experienced is real, but that doesn't mean it's an accurate version of what happened. It means it's real to you and the emotions you're experiencing. The emotions are real, but that doesn't mean that you are accurately interpreting or remembering what happened to you. We are capable of experiencing emotions based on things that we think happened to us that never happened. Maybe we had them in a dream. Maybe it was something that a psychologist planted. Like, we're capable of experiencing emotions based off things that never happened. Those emotions are real, but that doesn't mean that it's a result of racism or something that happened to you. You could just make it up. You'd still experience it. We experience them. One of the tricks to experiencing positive emotions is to think of a time when you were happy. Think of a time when you were happy or proud or excited or any of those things, and you will experience emotions from that thing. If you can't think of a real time, make something up. You'll still experience happy emotions. Doesn't mean it's based off a real thing.
Should be centered.
And that's why when you're actually studying lived experiences, because lived experience, like I do qualitative research, so like lived experiences are actually something I have studied. You have to study them as trends, and you have to study them over multiple different people. Because if you look at them as trends over multiple different people, you're much more likely to get to an accurate answer of like what's actually occurring rather than taking one lived experience. You never take one lived experience. Because that person could be lying. They could be making it up. They could be misremembering. You don't know. You have to look at it across multiple lived experiences.
Interdisciplinary analysis or perspective when we're looking at things, right? So kind of what Kate was talking about, like not this individualistic thing.
Breaking news, off topic. FDA advisory panel rejects widespread Pfizer booster shots. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that unexpected? It came out on a Friday. Hang on. Breaking news. Wow. An FDA panel opposed the Pfizer booster shots. Huh. That's from the CDC, YouTube. I'm not making that up. That's breaking news. I'm not spreading fake news. It's real.
Like, my way is the right way. Like, what does Soch say about it? What does psychology say about it? What is the historical inferences or implications of what is looking at, right? Like, how are we using multiple disciplines to look at what is happening? And the fifth tenet is a commitment to social justice. At the end of the day, when we do what we do, we're not just doing it for the sake of doing it, right? There are a lot of researchers that are considered rigorous academics that just do knowledge for the sake of knowledge, right? Our goal of the work that we do is to create a better world for marginalized folks, right? Like, we want our work to push things forward, to help liberate our folks, to make sure that we're actually fighting for social justice.
And Dr. Jones and I have heard some wild counter arguments in the past few weeks again. And I think it is largely misunderstood. And
no, Kate, you've been hearing the counter arguments. No one knows who Dr. Jones is. We all know who you are, though. Walk us through those counter arguments, Kate.
The ones that I see the most are kind of the ones that equate CRT with all anti-racist movements, culturally responsive pedagogy, anti-bias, anti-racist, multiculturalism. Like,
you know why she's saying that? Because they're trying to change the language. They've been caught red-handed, and now what they're doing is they're trying to change the language. So they're like, no, CRT has nothing to do with anti-racism. CRT has nothing to do with culturally responsive learning or teaching. They were so effing lazy. Check this out. They were so lazy with their language adaptation that they started to rename critical race theory culturally responsive teaching. They even used exactly the same acronym. It's tricks. Don't believe them. Anytime you hear the word equity, anytime you hear the word anti-racism, it is always critical race theory. It is always, 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 always. Do not believe them.
Critical race theory is a very specific way of looking at the world. And I think there are two really pervasive anti-CRT narratives. One is that CRT creates oppression.
No one says that. Well, we kind of are. We're saying it creates impression in that you convince yourselves that you're oppressed and therefore become oppressed. But no, I mean, we do see that CRT is racist. It's not the same thing.
That by naming systemic oppression that already exists, it somehow creates it, which, you know.
Okay, Kate, what systemic oppression actually exists? I want an example. I want you to give me an example of what systemic oppression you claim exists. Give me a policy. Give me a law. You live in Massachusetts, Kate. What laws in Massachusetts actually exist? And why aren't you fighting to change those laws rather than trying to convince white people they're racist?
Again, if you look at the central tenets, it's simply naming and shedding light on something that already exists.
For example, she's not going to give an example. They never give examples. They never get specific. Oh, it exists. Can't you just trust us that it exists? Okay.
Right. It is not somehow creating more oppression by naming that reality, right? And the other one that I hear a lot is that CRT it victimizes people of color, which, again, if you...
Well, CRT does teach, those are not the main objections that Kate has heard, by the way. I am very well schooled in the main objections that Kate has heard. So that's a lie. But CRT does tell people of color that they can't be successful in the world unless white people give up power to them. That's very true.
Think about the CRT tenets, the centering of the lived experiences, the commitment to social justice, the commitment to ending racial subjugation. Again,
my lived experience is that Kate Slater is a fraud. Whose lived experience in the chat is that Kate Slater is a fraud who got her PhD in a fraudulent ideology and is now trying to instill that fraudulent ideology on the public? Who agrees that Kate Slater, whose lived experience is that Kate Slater is a fraud? In the chat. Please respond. I want you to type in, my lived experience is that Kate Slater is a fraud. We're not allowed to question lived experiences, Kate. Yeah, Patrice says you're a fraud. Yvonne says you're a fraud. Your pal says you're a fraud. Reagan does. Node86 does. Diane says you're a grifter. Alexander DeJohn says Kate's a fraud. Dan says you're a fraud. Sixy says you're a fraud. Susie says you're a fraud. Amanda, Justin, Key, Jacqueline. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Catherine, Sin, Teddy, Taylor, Nick. Nick says she's just miseducated. Fine, Nick, you're being too nice. That's fine. The other Nick, Kate is a fraud. Alice, Sarah, Benjamin, Bucket of Crows. Kate, we have an awful lot of lived experience here that says that you are a fraud. Sorry, it's our lived experience. You can't question it. Lived experiences are a real thing. Don't you dare question our lived experience.
These are the exact opposite of these kind of dominant anti-CRT narratives. And I think that I found that what often emerges when I am talking to a troll, which I've had to rein way back on, is that—
You're welcome, Kate. You're welcome.
That a conversation about whether or not CRT should be taught actually becomes a conversation about whether or not systemic racism is real. And CRT is based on fact that systemic racism is real. This is not an opinion as to whether or not—
Then present your fucking evidence. I'm sorry. I know I just got very aggressive there. Present your fucking evidence, Kate. If it's a real thing, then you should be able to present evidence. Saying something is real. CRT is real, CRT is real, CRT is real, it doesn't make it a real thing. It doesn't make it real. Saying and wishing upon a star does not make systemic racism real. Present evidence. Present facts. Present examples. Present a single policy from the state of Massachusetts that you would dub systemic racism. Actually, you know what? I can present a policy from the state of Massachusetts that says systemic racism is real. Harvard University, right down the street from Brandeis, Harvard University actively discriminates against Asian Americans in their admissions process. That is a real concrete example of systemic racism. And it's not against Black people, it is against Asians. Why aren't you protesting Harvard, Kate? Why aren't you protesting Harvard for their gross instance of systemic racism against Asian Americans? I thought we were supposed to stop Asian hate. Why can I present a concrete example of systemic racism in the state of Massachusetts where I don't live and you can't? These people are such frauds. My lived experience is that Kate Slater is a fraud.
Not it's there. But for the people that don't want to see systemic racism, CRT is a complete threat to their worldview that subscribes to upholding whiteness and white supremacy. So that's a lot of the pushback we hear.
And
she is such a liar. I sent Kate so many people who were not making that argument into her Instagram. What did she do? She privated her Instagram and blocked everyone because she can't take anyone questioning her. Kate, you can still come on my channel and have a discussion. I won't even call you a fraud, even though my lived experience is that you're a fraud. You're welcome on any time, Kate. You can school us on critical race theory.
And I read it every day on my timeline. I see it in other social media outlets. And you mentioned the fact that critical race theory tends to be merged with other anti-racist and culturally relevant curricula. So I mentioned 1619 Project, for example. The fact that former President Trump countered that with the 1776 commission.
I want to see everyone who's a channel member. I want to see Kate furrowed brows in the chat. Every time Kate makes a stupid point, that is provably debunkable. We want to do Kate furrowed brows.
Right? And other senators and people in Congress are pushing these bills to try to get rid of that. But what I will say is, and of course you are the scholar, so
ooh, Common Cure coming in with an example. Hang on, gotta find it. What are your thoughts on the effects of redlining? Are those policies still in place? Those policies were bullshit. Those policies have since been reversed. Those policies mostly were reversed a long effing time ago. If you're talking about systemic racism in regards to policy, redlining is no longer a policy. And that's an indicator of progress. America's not a perfect place. It wasn't born a perfect place. It's not a perfect place now. But the whole idea is that we are a more perfect union. We get better every day. Redlining is an example of when we were not living up to our ideals. And as a result, those policies have been removed. Now, are there still effects from that? Sure. But is complaining about redlining when it's not still a flipping policy going to fix those? No. You know what will fix those? Teaching people that they can do whatever they want to do, regardless of things that have happened in the past. Those are my thoughts.
So you can correct me if I'm going astray. Don't those different curricular frameworks
exactly, we won that fight,
provide justification as to why critical race theory is important, right? The fact that there's so many states pushing for ethnic studies curricula at the secondary level, the fact that we have a 1619 project, the fact that we have other websites like a Zen education project or even Rethinking Schools, among many of these running.
New York City showing proof of vaccine with IDs is this is a racist. This is an actual example of systemic racism. Vaccine passports are systemic racism. This is a real example of systemic racism. Has Kate Slater come out against vaccine passports yet? Has Angel? Has Kwame? Have any of these people come out against vaccine passports yet? Probably not. Vaccine passports are racist. They disproportionately impact the African American community. They are racist. I thought racism was a public health crisis. Apparently not. Not anymore.
For justice, I can go on and on. That alone should let us know why critical race theory is important. But I want to go deeper into that.
That's not how
I want to know how can we cover this?
I thought critical race theory wasn't taught in K through 12 schools. Did any of these people get the memo that critical race theory isn't taught in K through 12 schools? Why is it important for critical race theory to be covered in K through 12 schools? In what ways can teachers and school districts integrate critical race theory into their academic curricula? I thought critical race theory wasn't taught in public schools, guys. Was I misinformed by Joy Reid? Did Joy Reid have that wrong? I'm going to take a screenshot of this real quick. I love the internet. Okay.
In our K-12 curricula. And for those who are wondering, like, what does that look like? What can that sound like? Because we know that's not directly covered in our curricula. This is something that's done at the graduate level in colleges.
He covered his ass. He just covered his ass. Look at that. It's like he realized halfway. He's like, oh, U-turn.
Right. But yet we're banning it from our K-12 school system, even though it's not even there to begin with.
If it's not in K through 12 schools, then you shouldn't be upset about it being banned. If it is not in K through 12 schools, you should not be upset that it was banned. Thank you, GeoS85, for the sticker. Oh, I love this one. It's a little dude. Hats off. He's dancing. It says, "You are amazing." Thank you for that super sticker. Appreciate it.
So let's talk about that. What can we do to integrate at least the philosophy of the theory in our academic curricula.
So, like, listen to how this went. This went like, how do we cover K through 12 critical race theory in K through 12 public schools? But it's not taught in public schools. It's only taught in graduate schools. I don't know why we're banning it. It's not taught in public schools. I don't know why we're even having this conversation. But no, really, how do we integrate this into schools? That's what he just did. He slipped and then he went back. He like realized mid-sentence, he was like, no, it's not taught in public schools. But no, really, how do we integrate it in public schools?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. So when CRT, like actual CRT, the roots and core of CRT are taught. They're taught in law school because, like I said, it originated from critical legal studies, or they're
you learned it in school of education. So it's not just taught in law school. You literally learned it in a school of education, Angel.
Taught in grad school for a reason, because the actual roots are very complicated, right? Like I took full courses on CRT. Like it wasn't just, oh, I read a book. No, like we had an entire course just on critical race theory, and there's a reason for that. But because it is a framework, educators can still use that framework when they approach their teaching, when admins approach the policies and practices in their school.
So you're saying that critical race theory is practiced in public schools. Not that the groundwork is being taught, because we're not teaching insane nonsense directly to children, but that what they're doing is they're learning about it in teacher education schools, and then they are putting it into practice in public schools. This is what James Lindsay means when he says critical race theory in praxis. Praxis, think of it as being interchangeable with practice.
They can still use a critical race theory lens or framework, right? So for example, if you're looking at discipline data, right? Because we know in K-12, there's a disproportionality with regards to the number of Black and brown kids that are sent to the principal's office or expelled or suspended. Instead of just looking at those numbers at face value and assuming it's because Black and brown kids are just bad, critical race theory to like, wait a minute, there's racism embedded in all of our systems.
If there is racism embedded in public schools, that sounds like a violation of the Civil Rights Act to me. Does that sound like a violation of the Civil Rights Act to anyone else if racism is embedded in our public school system? Those schools that are putting critical race theory into praxis probably shouldn't be getting our tax dollars if there is racism embedded in the school.
Right? What role might racism be playing in what's happening right here, right? If you're thinking about how you're going to create your lesson plan, right? Like think about the people that you are putting in front of your students. Think about the authors' voices that you're centering versus not centering, right? Like the educators themselves can take a critical race approach without necessarily having to teach the 5 tenets or the 3 tenets, if you go back to the originals, to 6-year-olds. Like we're not.
Hang on. Guys, I have good news. I think someone sent me the TikTok videos I was talking about earlier. All right, we're going to finish this up because it's not that long left. It's like 14 minutes. And then we're going to watch the TikTok videos of the crazy best friends.
Not asking 7-year-olds to learn what entrance convergence is, right? Like that's not what this is, even though that's what people are making it.
No, what you're asking 7-year-olds to learn is, if you believe that the world should be fair and just, then you don't believe in equality. You believe in equity. Because equity gives every person what they need. Who in the chat knows the difference between equality and equity? Who gets the gold star in the chat today? Who knows the difference between equality and equity? Because that's what they're doing when they're teaching it to young kids in schools. They're not teaching this like bullshit that these guys are talking about. They're teaching it at a very basic level. They're saying, do you believe that the Pledge of Allegiance is good? Well, if you believe the Pledge of Allegiance is good, that means you believe in fairness and justice for all. And if you believe that there should be fairness and justice for all, that means that you don't want equality. You want equity, because equity is the only way to be fair and just for all. Yeah, you guys know what it is. Equality of opportunity versus equality of outcomes. Equality of outcomes is what? It's a word that starts with M. What is equality of outcomes? It's a word that starts with M. You guys are so good. Kin says, have you ever wondered why they don't say diversity, inclusion, and equity? Because the acronym would be DIE. Yes, that's right. Graphically, Alex. Equity is Marxism. It is Marxism. Justice, who can now talk in public again. Congratulations, Justice. Welcome back to the land of the living. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our local Zoom calls. Justice says it is maddening. Not the M word I was looking for, but accurate nonetheless. Marxism, Patrice says mold. Madness. All these M words are correct in their own special way.
Out to be, because like Kate was saying earlier, at the end of the day, they're not arguing against CRT. They're arguing against accepting the fact that systemic racism exists and is permeating throughout all of our.
No, I very much believe systemic racism exists. I believe that systemic racism exists against African Americans at Harvard University when Harvard actively discriminates against them. I believe systemic racism exists when it comes to African Americans being disproportionately impacted by vaccine passports. Do you believe systemic racism exists, Angel? Why do you hate Black people, Angel? Why do you want Black people to suffer with Black vaccine passports? I know I don't. Such liars, my God.
Systems, including our educational system.
Absolutely. Exactly. When you think of it as a framework, it's just a way in which you conduct your classroom, and a way in which you center curriculum that subscribes to these 5 tenets. And, you know, Sylvia Duckworth and...
Oh, so Kate, you just flat out said that critical race theory is being put into practice in public schools. Congratulations, Kate. You caught up.
And Dr. Jones and I both talked about the example of the narrative of Columbus. Again, you're not talking to 7-year-olds about interest convergence theory, but you can talk to 7-year-olds about what is the dominant narrative. And again, you might not use those words, but what is the dominant narrative of Columbus? He discovered America, you know? But what happens when we talk about he didn't discover America? What if we try and investigate the stories that haven't been brought to the forefront? How about we investigate, you know, the tribes that came in contact with him? If we are centering the lived experience.
Kate obviously read People's History of the United States in college, as did most of us. That might be a fun thing to reread. I have it in my basement. It's sitting on a pile of books.
Experiences of people of color. Why don't we learn about how those tribes have continued out today, and what those tribes are doing today, and what are some of the narratives of people who exist in those tribes? You know.
Oh. Well, this is Justice would know this, because Justice, I think up until today, was on the school committee in his town. CRT is in the state rubric for superintendents in public school. Justice, I know you're going to go on Deb's channel, but can you come on my channel and talk about what you learned on school committee? Please? You're welcome anytime, my friend.
But these, again, are ways of modifying your curriculum to push back on the dominant hegemonic narratives, to think about whose voices you're centering and why, to think about power systems that show up in your curriculum that you need to be cognizant of.
Ding, 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 ding. Critical race theory is not about race. It's about power. That's all critical race theory is about.
And critique. And again, with this mission towards social justice at the end of the day, as being that container that you put it all in.
Right. And I feel like even with the Columbus narrative, I mean, we're talking about just settler colonialism, you know, when we talk about indigenous people, like that's something that we have to address in our schools, but it also ties back into critical race theory. So it goes back to the fact that it's a framework. You're not teaching the actual curriculum, but you're actually using that influence to let people know that, hey, we have different people from different social, you know, from different backgrounds, socio-cultural backgrounds, people that speak different languages, people who practice different faiths religiously. Like, we have to factor all these in. And that also ties into the whole narrative of critical race theory. So I'm wondering, with regard to just the fact that we have different students who come from different walks of life. So going back to just the intersectional identities of our students, particularly our BIPOC community, right? How can we go about addressing the intersectionality of their identities within our work? And how does that influence the work that we do, you know, in terms of anti-racism and building racial literacy?
Wait. Didn't you just say like 10 minutes ago that anti-racism is different than critical race theory? So why are we talking about anti-racism in the context of a critical race theory discussion? These people can't even get their own facts straight. Teddy Bear, thank you for becoming a member on the channel. I appreciate it. Rock that Kate Slater furrowed brow emoji, my friend. Rock the Kate Slater emoji. Kate is always with us on this channel. Justice, she just spoke. I don't know if you saw Deb's stream last night, Justice. She just spoke at the Newburyport Public Library. She's doing a whole series with them. I'm trying to get the recording for the first one because apparently it was insane. This is all I could find for today, but like I really want to get that recording from the Newburyport Public Library. I really, really do.
I think for me, the first thing that, I mean, that's what CRT does, y'all. Like, I feel like people are hating on something. I'm like,
oh, really? Because again, Angel, you just said like 10 minutes ago that CRT and anti-racism are not even related. They're not even remotely close to being the same thing. And now that's what CRT does. Isn't that interesting?
Like, yo, like, no, like, there's a framework that is telling you to check yourself, right? That is telling you to think about intersectionality. Like, Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw is one of the founders of critical legal studies, right? So, like, we're talking about what these things mean, what intersectionality means, and then there are other frameworks that have been adapted or are extensions of CRT, right? So there's LatCrit, which talks about the experiences of the Latinx community, right? There's DisCrit, which talks about thinking about the oppressive systems against people with disabilities. There's LangCrit, right, which talks about things like anti-Black linguistic racism from Dr. April Baker Bell, right? Like there are these frameworks that force us to interrogate things, right? And to understand that there are all these systems of oppression that are attacking our students, right? That are impacting our students that we should be thinking about all the time, right? So even if we're not teaching our students DisCrit and LangCrit and QueerCrit and all of these things, we as educators should be educated in them so that way we know how we should.
We really need to do more queer critical theory. Do you guys remember a couple weeks ago when we did the fat studies video? Because I had a traumatic experience after that live stream. Do you guys remember the fat studies video with that one dude whose Instagram we looked at? Like, critical race theory is having to rein in the level of insanity because it's got like such a big magnifying glass on it right now. We need to start watching the really insane things. This is on me. We're gonna do this next week. We need to start watching the really insane things because the really insane things are in queer theory and it's in fat theory. Like, I went down the rabbit hole after we did the fat theory one a couple weeks ago. I saw more than I ever wanted to see in my life. I'm good, but I'll do it for you guys. If we can suffer together, we will suffer through it. But it's actual, and it's like, this is like tame compared to what is going on in like fat studies and queer theory, because that doesn't have to be sane right now. It's still like completely off the rails. Critical race theory is a big magnifying glass, so they're starting to rein it in. Oh my, it's just like I can't even tell you guys what I saw. I would not be allowed. I would not be allowed to show on YouTube the things I saw. I can never unsee them. They are burned into my mind forever.
Should be approaching our teaching that in a way that acknowledges the intersectionality of their identity and how multiple systems of oppression are impacting their ability to learn and be educated and become successful.
No, Justice, I have not seen this. SWIS. Please DM me more information on that, Justice. Thank you.
I don't have much to add, except I see the ties there.
Kieran, you didn't even see it. You just heard it. You didn't even... I actually saw it, okay? You did not suffer as much as I did in the watching of that material, and he knows what I'm talking about. You guys don't know what I'm talking about. He does. I was more traumatized than you when I want credit for it.
Between CRT and obviously culturally responsive
pedagogy,
Justice. Which is, premised on the fact that when your students show up in your classroom, you treat them like the whole autonomous human beings that they are, not empty vessels that you dump your knowledge in. They're people with identities. They're people with backgrounds, with lived experiences, and you meet them where you are, or where they are, excuse me. And again, even though culturally responsive pedagogy and CRT are not the same thing,
they are the
CRT
same thing.
Framework, you bring that into your classroom. This is like the foundation that you operate from as an educator.
If you think that Kate Slater is a liar, if your lived experience is that Kate Slater is a liar when she says that critical race theory and culturally responsive learning are not the same thing, please type liar into the chat.
And so what Dr. Jones said about, these offshoots of CRT, I think they give us so much potential to understand how identities intersect.
Liar,
they give us
liar,
so
pants
much
on
opportunity
fire.
to really take a rigorous, multi-layered, nuanced look at how these identities fold in on each other. And this is the beauty of CRT, that it can be this expansive, that it can be this applicable in so many different areas. It's not even just limited to racism, right? Even though it foregrounds that at the center.
Oh, absolutely. And wow, we could talk about this all day, but I know, we're in a time crunch. So I'd like to just go right into the lightning round, and we'll go through this real quickly because I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But man, this has just been an awesome conversation, and we might have to do a part 2 if we can fit it in somehow. But I want to ask you all this question because you are doing some heavy lifting right now when we talk about just everything in academia, critical race theory, and then other things that you're advocating about as well. What do you all do for self-care, each of you?
Besides text each other.
Legit is how we take care. I just came back from Puerto Rico, so that was definitely my self-care. It felt really, really, really good. Honestly, being in community, right, with people like Kate and other people that get it, right, that understand what it feels like to do the work that we do, I think for me has been very healing and reaffirming.
Awesome.
I'd second that in a heartbeat. Being in community is great. And I'd say the one other thing is, let me tell you, nobody keeps you humble like a toddler. My kid could not give less of a crap about the stuff I'm dealing with trolls online or people who are anti-CRT. She's just like, are we watching Penguins of Madagascar or are we not? And I think sometimes that can be really tough to juggle. So it's not necessarily self-care, but I think it's a good way of reminding myself, what's going on Instagram is not your whole life. There's so much more out there.
You're welcome, Kate. You're welcome. She's talking about me. She's talking about all the trolls I sent her way. I'm sorry. I just have to take pride in that. I challenged this bitch to a debate, and she posted something stupid on Instagram, and I posted that thing she posted on Twitter, and all of a sudden the next day she was in the Daily Mail and on Fox News. And I'm sorry, I'm going to take a victory lap on that. That was a victory. Anything that you can do to discredit these people is productive. No, apparently she has not raised an anti-racist baby as of yet. But I'm sure she will. I'm sure she will.
Connection, there's community, there's family.
It just gives me joy. It gives me joy that this needled her so much that she was still talking about it after the fact on podcasts. Guys, we all did this together. Many of you participated in this. Many of you went on Kate Slater's Instagram to challenge what she was saying. She blocked many of you. This was a team effort. These are the things that we need to do together. This is throwing sand in the gears of these people. Just slow them down a little bit. Just expose what they're doing just a little bit. We all need to participate in this. And it's fun. And it's gratifying.
There's people who you love. Give them your time and energy because that's what sustains you.
Right. And then the last question I'll ask for this is, if you're at a dinner table and each of you can invite two people
we need to do this
dinner,
more. We do need to
dead or
do this
alive,
more, Patrice. We do.
figures, who would they be?
Mine are easy. Audre Lorde and Toni Morrison. They are women that gave me life, that still give me life. Their readings, their words show me that mine are powerful, right? Like I write because they wrote first. And I continue to write because I want to make them proud and I want their sacrifices to never be in vain. So I would love to just sit at their feet and just listen.
Mine would be the two Glorias, Gloria Steinem and Gloria Ladson-Billings. I just want them to hang out with each other because their work is in many ways very parallel, but in very different circles. You know, Gloria Steinem, activist. Gloria Ladson-Billings, activist, but in the education space. But I would just sit there, I'd sit back, let the wine flow and let them talk about their histories because they've seen some stuff.
Listen, and I'm a little jealous of Angel. You had a chance to talk to the OG Dr. Gloria.
I sure did.
You know what I mean?
It's amazing.
You know, you might have to help a brother out, put a good word in for you. You know what I'm saying?
All right, I think we're basically at the end. Hang on.
I'll see what I can do.
Kwame,
Yeah,
it's
so
like
talk
6
about-
degrees. It's
4
like
more
6
minutes.
degrees of Kevin Bacon. I'm like, I know someone who knows Gloria Ladson-Billings.
She's the go
Right. Woo. But Dr. Angel Jones and Dr. KATE SLATER. I just love saying doc. I just love saying that. I just rolls off my tongue. Listen, ladies, I love y'all. Thank you all for coming on to the platform.
Thank you.
Keep on this.
All right. This is done. But what's not done is TikTok. Check this out. Okay. Let's see if I just load this in the same window, if it'll come right up. It will. Okay. So this is the guys. You guys are gonna love this. Okay. This is what I was talking about with the black woman and her white best friend. And I don't remember which ones are specific to which. So we're just going to watch a couple of these TikTok videos. You guys, oh, there it is. Yes. You guys are going to see. You guys are going to see exactly what I'm talking about. Let's watch this one first.
The first kind of microaggression. This is called a micro insult. As you can tell by the name, it's simply, it got my chips.
No, that's not with her. That's not with her white best friend. That's not with her white best friend. Okay. Hang on.
So we got this question above. What do we think about Black Lives Matter signs?
That's her white best friend.
Jess actually has some really interesting experiences with the Black Lives Matter signs that she put out on her lawn.
Right. So I had one, and then at some point last summer, somebody, I guess, came up to my lawn and just took it.
That's not what I'm talking about either. I was so excited. Oh, God. No. Hang on. Maybe it's this one.
So let's talk about intent versus impact.
So as you know, I have 2 children.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. And they are both equally likely to spill milk. One of them is likely to do so on accident. They will be reading a book or otherwise not paying attention and accidentally spill milk. The other one is more likely to look me square in the face and cackle, evilly.
This isn't what I'm talking about either. Okay, hang on. This bitch has made so many... I don't mean she's a bitch in real life. I'm just saying it. I'm saying it colloquially. This woman has made so many TikToks. I saw so many TikToks of her with her white best friend. Paige, she deleted them. No. Oh, man. Oh. Man. So now you guys know exactly who I'm talking about. If you know these videos, they were like all over the place a couple months ago. Hang on, I'm not going to give up yet. I'm not going to give up because she did a whole bunch with this woman. It was a whole series on teaching her white best friend how she's microaggressing against her.
It has come to my attention that my recent actions in a TikTok video series made people feel uncomfortable. To all of our followers, I am so sorry for the discomfort that I have caused you. But just so we are
She's
clear,
reading on cue cards.
MK was not responsible. Also, it was not ice cream. It was a grapefruit sorbet bar. If you have any further concerns, MK's DMs are open.
What the hell was that? What the hell was that? Hang on. I promise if we find the right videos, it's going to be completely and totally worth it. But she very well may have maybe if we Google, like, okay. Maybe if we look up her name. Hang on. Guys, this is a team effort. I'm determined to find these damn videos. Okay, I think I might have found one. Hang on.
Ask my white best friend Black culture question, so there's one less problematic white person in the world. Hey, Jess.
Yes.
Hey, girl. Do you ever microaggress me?
I sure do.
What happens after you microaggress me?
You let me know,
Mhm.
and I apologize, and tell you that I will try to do better next time.
Are you afraid of me?
No.
Are you offended?
No, I'm grateful that you value our friendship enough to even say something with me, because to even say something to me, because you don't have to do that, and so I'm grateful that you did.
Be open to feedback. It's how we change the world.
It's like a cult relationship. They did this whole series of videos. There's a hashtag. Okay, maybe this is like where we're gonna find these videos. Okay, we have hit the fucking mother lode. Okay, we found the hashtag. Okay, hang on.
Asking my white best friend Black culture questions, so there's one less problematic white person in the world. Hey, Jess. Hey, girl, staying hydrated. Come here.
I know, weird, right?
Come here.
What's up?
What is in this container?
I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure it's not Cool Whip.
She knows better. Help me open it, girl. Help me open it. You see me trying to film.
What is this?
It's chili. See, now listen, y'all. Don't go into a Black house and reach in the refrigerator, pulling out something that you think is going to be a tasty little treat. Because we use and reuse containers and put them back in the refrigerator. And y'all be mad as hell. We're reaching for the butter and, they beans. So I'm just saying, just know.
Now you know.
Now you know.
It's like no one but Black people use containers over again. This is like a hostage situation. I swear to God. This is like a hostage situation.
So Jess and I decided that we are going to do a live on Friday night. It's going to be
that's
7
not
p.m.
a
to
good
8
one.
p.m.
That's not a good one. Hang on.
So we got this comment, and I honestly wasn't even going to do a video, but Jess's response just cracked me up. What was your response to this comment?
So somebody asked, how do I say something to another white person without that person getting offended? Why do you care if they get offended?
Yes, right. There needs to be a little bit of apathy when we're doing the work of people, because people will get offended, and them not being offended is not our goal. Our goal is, are we stopping the behavior, or are we educating people on a better way?
Anti-racism is not about walking on eggshells for white people.
Girl, A word on this Thursday evening, okay? Not about white people not being offended.
It is a hostage situation. That's the apology.
Ask my white best friend Black culture question, so there's one less problematic white person in the world. Hey, Jess.
Yes.
Hey, girl. Do you ever microaggress me?
No, we already watched that one.
Asking my white best friend Black culture question, so there's one less problematic white person in the world. Hey, Jess.
Hey.
For me, MK.
Yes.
How many times a week is it suggested that I wash my hair?
Once?
Yes. Why only once?
I don't know.
Okay, so let's talk about it. My hair, because I have a curl pattern, needs oils. Your hair, because it does not have a curl pattern, it does not need oils. When I wash my hair too often, it strips out the natural oils that I need to keep my hair from drying out and being brittle. That's why washing my hair too often and too frequently is really bad for it. And that's why white people typically wash their hair every day. The more you know. Insert random. Asking my white belt.
There's a whole I swear to God, there's a whole series of videos that this woman made with her white best friend. But then the white best friend made different videos where she was like talking about how she was going to let her like newborn daughter cry because white women's tears are bad and you need to teach white women from the time they are infants apparently not to cry when they're upset about something, because if you coddle them when they cry, then you're just going to teach them that they can always use their white woman's tears to go. I swear to God, this is a real thing. Anyway, I don't want to keep futzing about on TikTok because I don't even understand how TikTok works. But guys, that's what we have for happy hour this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Our little return to Kate Slater. I don't know what we're gonna do next week because we might have to return to queer theory or like fat studies or things like that. I want some extra insanity next week. We've had a couple of weeks where it's been pretty light. I want some extra insanity, but we do happy hour 3 p.m. every Friday. So come join us next week. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure, and especially if you want to be able to chat, because the white identitarians are going to come attack the channel. I know they are. They're already talking about it. So make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to be putting the chat feature on next week where you're not going to be able to chat if you aren't subscribed for a certain period of time. But you can also join my locals. Locals is the best place on the internet, kb.locals.com. That's all I have for this week, guys. We'll see you soon. Have a great weekend.